we have a guest of a guest, a faux guest, a true guest. But Chris, you've got some. We'll jump into that in just a minute. But you've got some exciting news to share.
I do. First off, I'm not Tom Chevalier, so that's my first piece of news.
Your big news.
Yeah. But the second one is I became a grandfather, which one of my colleagues said, finally, my gray hair makes sense. So Angela and I welcomed our first grandchild into this world, Owen Brian Gillum, on Tuesday. Mom, Dad, and Owen are happy and healthy. And so I'm talking to you from Philadelphia. We're just down the road. This cute little family is taking care of their newborn, and there we go. So I'm a happy man.
That's congratulations. I think that's wonderful news.
Thank you.
Jerry, you've got a stance on grandparenting.
I have three. The youngest of them are 14 and 13, and one that's 23. So there's a lot of that. But I do tell you though, Chris, that for me, when they became old enough to start eating, I would avoid them, like whatever, because I'm a foodie and they just don't seem to, ingest food the same way until they get to about 7 or 8. So it was about then that I started paying attention to them a little bit around dinner. You know what I mean? They could still sit there.
Well, I happily will learn from your wisdom. So I will look forward to that.
I just want to make sure my takeaway from that is accurate, Jerry. So, because I've been on a camp out with you. I mean, you. Although to be fair, we had steaks and really nice wine on your camp out. We didn't exactly have hot dogs and burgers. Okay, well it's all lining up now. I get it. All right. So the unrefined palates of children is you just got to wait that out.
You do. You really do. But obviously you want to spend time with them when they're not, messing things up, etc. I mean, you could volunteer for other things, but I would suggest, when they're really ready for you, that's cool.
Well, Chris, congratulations on being a new grandfather, and congratulations to your wife for being a new grandmother. And try not to avoid too many meals, I guess, until then. All right, we are here for some work chat. You guys ready to get started?
Let's go.
All right, let's jump right in.
Welcome to the CXR channel, our premier podcast for talent acquisition and talent management. Listen in as the CXR community discusses a wide range of topics focused on attracting, engaging, and retaining the best talent. We're glad you're here.
All right. Hello. My name is Motley Crue, and I'm welcoming my sidekick and partner in crime, Warrant. How's that? There's a reference for you, Warrant and Motley Crue. I'm not sure that's appropriately lined up, but Jerry, welcome back to the show, sir.
Well, thank you.
Feels like it's been a while since we've been in here.
Yeah.
A little bit. We've been on the road. Yeah, we had a big event. We did our leadership summit since the last time we were on, which was out in Napa. Wonderfully partnered and hosted with Ian J. Gallo. It was great.
It was one of the more interesting kind of events and experiences for sure. If you're able to do a lot of hard work, kind of at a vineyard, it's a whole different way of approaching that.
Has your liver recovered from our leadership 3-day summit?
No, it never will. It's and it's fine. It's fine. It's part of being old and living.
It's in a perpetual state of training, is the way I like to think of my liver. Always being trained. Before we jump in, I just want to remind everybody: if you're with us live, if you're on LinkedIn or any other channels, and maybe there's a chat window there on the side, we'd encourage you to go ahead and say hello. Drop a hi in there. We've got a couple already popping up. Feel free to say hello. If you've got questions for our guest today, and we're pulling a switcheroo on you today. If you've got questions for our guest today, drop those in there. We'll be sure to try to get to them. We'll throw them up on the screen if you're watching, as well as other shows that you can check out at cxr.org/podcast. You can check those out online. Those are the upcoming shows and previous recorded. I think, Jerry, we're at like 300 and 78 shows, if you can believe it.
I know.
I know. We get an average of we have I think we have 5 downloads per episode. This is a fun little labor-loving project that we do. But for more popular downloads and section, let me throw up the screen really quick. I want to remind folks that we do have a new learning platform that's been launched, and that it's got a series of courses in there that are developed by our members in partnership with them, and that's been thrown up. If you're a CXR member, you can check those out. Those are completely free for you at cxr.work/learning. I think we've got Closing the Gap, the Gender Gap in Technology. We've got Foundations of Candidate Experience. We've got Pay Transparency as a Recruiting Advantage, and we have Recruiting Underrepresented Talent, which is coming up next. So I'm super excited about that. That should be launched here in the next week or so.
Yeah, I really think it's great when you can find the kind of expertise that it exists within peers and colleagues that they can share with one another. As opposed to folks we don't know. These are folks that we do know who really are passionate and knowledgeable about some of these areas that we think can be shared.
Yeah, I think, well, that's a good call. I hadn't thought of it that way. These aren't canned courses that we grabbed somewhere and jammed into the platform. These are folks we work with and colleagues in the space who we have put in front of the camera. We've hired a course designer to come in and build this out. And they're about an hour to an hour and a half long, and they're actually pretty good. We had 40 new participants actually go in, I think, within the last week or so and complete some courses. So it's doing pretty well. It seems to be pretty popular. So anyway, cxr.work/learning. So that is our little bump there in the front. So without further ado, why don't we reach into the green room and pull out Tom Chevalier? Nope, it's not Tom. It's Chris.
Hey guys, yeah, you got the less fun and less intelligent person today. Tom sadly is down with COVID, and so I got the long stick to join you guys. Great to see you again. And what are we going to talk about today?
Yeah, we got stuff. Yeah, we got stuff to talk about. So look, glad you're back on. We always love to have you on the show. It's always great to connect with you. I'm not buying the line about any type of level of intelligence. You might be one of the, and I got to tell you, for those who don't know, so Chris came out to the leadership summit that we did about a week or so ago, and he and Mike, you guys were crunched for time. We had a 45-minute session that unfortunately was standing between 60 heads of talent and wine and dinner.
World-class wine. Yeah.
World-class wine, and got crunched to about 30 minutes. But I will tell you, everybody that I have spoken to that was there was like, oh my God, that guy was brilliant. I wish I had another 45 minutes to ask him questions, because you shared some really interesting data points. Yeah. So I'm saying could be one of the smartest guys in the space.
I'm just saying. Objectively, this is something that most people don't know, but Tom Chevalier, who a lot of people know Tom. He's founding chief product officer at Appcast, and he and his product team have won every award in our industry for product innovation, like literally every one. He was valedictorian of both his high school and university.
Cool.
So, like literally, he's
probably
the smartest guy in the room. Yeah. So anyway, but Tom's sick, so you get me. There you go.
Well, look, Chris, so those who have not had the pleasure and the advantage of sitting in on a session where you talk data and numbers and insights, why don't you give us kind of an escalator pitch of who is Chris Foreman and just a little bit about Appcast, and then I want to come back as a conversation talk about labs, which I think is super interesting. We were going to talk about that with Tom, but so who's Chris Foreman? Give us that pitch.
Chris Foreman is 53 years old. I live right near Dartmouth College. 4 days ago, I became a grandfather for the first time. Angela and I have 4 kids, and we live on a dairy farm. And one of those kids now has a kid, which is a mind-bending thing for any of those you who have not yet had a grandchild. My background is I've spent the last 20 years building, growing recruitment technology companies. So as the CEO of AIRS, for any of you who have been in talent acquisition for a long time, AIRS training and the first broadly adopted recruitment CRM, sold that to a big RPO, sold the RPO to ADP, then built a couple businesses. The latest is Appcast. And Appcast is 500 person company, 560 person company that makes software that buys and optimizes performance job ads. But we're not here to talk about that. What we're here to talk about is, again, the smartest guy. Tom came to me about 18 months ago and said, we are slowing down. And as somebody who has gray hair, I don't like hearing that I'm slowing down. That's, it's getting a little too close to home. But Tom's point was that, what made Appcast tick was the ability to move fast and take harebrained ideas and get them into the market really quickly. And he wasn't wrong. I mean, if our software breaks right now, we have over $1 billion worth of ad spend going through it. Do the math on what that is every hour. And if we make the software break, guess who's writing the check for all that ad spend? Mm-hmm. So it's really expensive to go, what does Zuckerberg say? Go fast and break things. Well, yeah, that's really expensive. And so we started to talk about how to create a real ability to bring innovation into a more mature business. And that was the foundation of the lab. And there's lots of companies that have innovation groups and labs. But I've talked to a bunch of people about how we structured the lab, and it's half a bubble off compared to the way a lot of larger organizations that want to bring innovation into what they're doing. So you want to talk about that for 1 minute before we
let's break that down. Yeah. So folks right. Can keep up.
So if you're a big company and you realize you're getting slow, it's a classic, it's like a 10-yard post pattern in football. Okay. We're going to take a group of people that are really smart. We're going to put them over here. We're going to give them a budget, and we let them go build cool things.
Right.
Do you know the amount of time that actually works? Approximating 0, because entrepreneurship and the incubation of ideas needs to be something where there is an incredible culling that constantly goes on about saying, is this working? Is this working? Is this working? It isn't working, change. It isn't working, change. It isn't working, change. How do you get that in early stage businesses? It's lack of funding. It's resource constraints. It's, we raised $2 million and oh crap, we're going to run out of money if we don't make this darn thing work. If you've got a development team that is on, nice salaries and works in a nice big office, and there's a cafeteria downstairs, and it doesn't work that way. So you end up having, in my personal opinion, a bunch of zombie initiatives, things that are good ideas on a whiteboard that never ever get killed.
Because your theory, Chris, is because everybody's too comfortable.
And also, you can make anything work if you try it hard enough, but what you end up building is some Frankenstein over in the corner that doesn't solve the original business problem that you're trying to solve. Constraining resources brings truth to a lot of what you do, because you can't make decisions to do everything. You can only do the most important things.
You're forcing that prioritization.
It's a forcing function. So what we did was we created an investment committee. So it's Tom, and he got 4 other people, all developers. So Tom's the only product person. There's no commercial people, no overhead. 4 developers that can, full cycle, front end, back end, build everything. Tom is the effective CEO.
Okay.
And there's 7 people on the board. Tom is one of them. And he has to go and pitch the board for funding, in essence, the ability to go build something. And the funding comes in tranches, 3 months at a time. So it's like the classic pitch deck. It's like, what's the market? What's the what's the team? We know who the team is. What's the problem? What's the solution? What's the competition? What does revenue look like? What's the market differentiation? And the board basically looks at this and says, yeah, we buy in, or no. And if you buy in, there's something that needs to happen within 90 days, and because you got to come back to the board and say, we did it, or we didn't do it, and here's why, and this is why you should extend our lease on life in 3 months, for another 3 months. And now also, so there's this concept of externality of creating pressure.
Mhm.
They can only have two ideas. One they get to work on. One is always in the second chamber. So it's an over under shotgun. So like you can, if in fact the board says no, there's something else. There's a cartridge ready to go. So no one's ever without something to do.
So in theory, Chris, what I hear you saying is every 90 days there's a reevaluation of the work that's being done.
Mhm.
Iterations
Yeah,
can
so
continue, or you may abort. Right? You may move into
That's right.
another direction entirely.
And after the first couple of those, the board can say, all right, you're good for a year because you've proven product market fit. You have adoption, yada, yada, yada. Okay, here you go. And then, we can make the decision if we want to spin it out and actually have it be a real company, bring it into Appcast, do something else with it. But so, and then the last is one of the interesting things is, this team, their annual bonuses and that type of stuff is tied to them having some measure of success. So that's the other element of, having some skin in the game. And it's super fun and it's worked out. These investment committee meetings are as hard as any board meeting that I had when, I was raising venture capital for a couple of my businesses. And, those are real deal things where, you got to sing for your supper and you need to be able to argue with super smart people. And it's great. And so, you asked Tom to come talk about some of the work that they've done with the first thing that we greenlit out of the lab. It was called Rosetta Stone, Project Rosetta Stone.
Okay.
And that was looking at how job ad content impacts performance for recruitment marketers. So that's the first thing that we worked on. That just got finished up. We've taken a bunch of this stuff and turned it into kind of some of the core product stuff that we did, and the team is off to something else. But anyway,
how deep can we go on that concept? If you're wrapping it, I assume you definitely got some outputs to share, and some insights that Tom had come prepared to share. So as the faux Tom. Like what was the big takeaway from Rosetta Stone? Like what could we expect from that?
Well, so first off, there's a ton of research that Tom's team did, built on some broader research that the Appcast Recruitonomics team did about the role of content in getting job seekers to engage with your job advertisements. And so, just to list a few of these, if you've been to any Appcast thought leadership stuff, you've probably heard some of this stuff. There's a porridge too hot and a porridge too cold construct for job ad titles. And hey, Dave Manister, it's been too long, man. So for the length of job ad titles and for the length of the actual job ad itself, the content of it. So it's 2 to 4 words for the title. You get lower conversion rates if it's a single word. It goes up when it's 2 to 4, and it goes way down if all of a sudden you're writing a sentence in the title line, because people, again, most people are not looking for, they're looking for normal jobs. And so if you say, we are looking for the Beethoven of sandwich artists, no one freaking knows what that means. But if you say, we want a cashier.
But this hurts a little because in my early days, I remember when we were just so creative 20 years ago, like the ninja, the rock star, these beautiful titles we were coming up with were all these were going to solve our talent attraction issues. You saying that's dead to you now?
Well, no, I mean, what's interesting is data really tells the real story. That sounds cool over a beer and in a whiteboard. But if you are thinking about who is reading that job ad, maybe they don't read, ancient Japanese military history and understand what a ninja is. Now, granted, there was a time when we were growing up, ninjas were in every movie, so maybe that isn't real. But the other thing is guess what doesn't understand what a ninja is? Matching software. So you're writing content not just for people, you're writing it for the bits and bytes that match people and their behavior to the job seeker. So having the right size title, having the right size job description. Just, again, it's like, 400-ish words. If it's too short, you read it, and it's like if you ever go on Craigslist to buy a bike or, an RV, and it just says good condition. Okay, but if it actually gives you some information, then you're like, okay, I'm going to engage with that. It's kind of logical. You need enough information to read it and know what you're buying, but not enough that, you got to throw the whole thing into ChatGPT to say, summarize this for me. Having a certain number of non-cash benefits. We partnered with Harvard Business School to understand that they boiled our ocean of data, and they found that if you had 4 non-cash benefits, it increased the click to apply rate by over 30%. And I would like to remind everybody that most of us operate in companies that have at least free shitty coffee. So free coffee is a benefit.
You beat me to my question. Like what do we get to include in that bulleted list?
Does not matter. The one thing that will ring the bell: pet insurance. Off the hook. If you offer pet insurance, even if the company doesn't pay for it, you just offer it. It should be in every single job ad in America, because people just are like into pet insurance.
That, Jerry, Chris has a small army of guys in a lab, guys and gals in a lab somewhere just waiting. He said, I'm going to say pet insurance should go on every job, and they're going to gather all that data, and we're going to see a wave. I think it's a test. He's just doing it to see if the industry takes off.
And as you're talking, Chris, I'm thinking the main thing that you have is data in terms of outcome. Yeah. So that whatever the hell you do, whether it's pet insurance or 4 or 5 or whatever, you have a reasonable ability to see what the impact is in a relatively short period of time, because you have a huge amount of data that can do that. And I'm thinking, prior to all of that, we used to imagine what the answers were to those same questions as we wrote thousands of headlines and text for newspaper ads that only we, in conversation with our clients, would discover whether it produced anything, right? And then as you found a couple key things, at least for a short period of time in some context, you were just winning because you had found something, but it really was by luck. But now we're really data focused.
But so let me ask a question, Chris. So when we were posting jobs in our previous lives, right, it was always about the candidate. We were always trying to attract and appeal to the candidate. But what I just heard you say is that if we're not thinking about the matching, if we're not thinking about the machine when we're putting those together, we're in an era now where we're doing ourselves a great disservice.
You are writing for both the machines and people. That is a key learning. And in fact, the Rosetta Zone project built on this research, and basically it's a piece of tech that operates on the idea that it's really, 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 really hard to change content in an applicant tracking system. Okay. Most of the job ads that come, on a lot of the big ERP systems are coming from some goofball HRIS system. It's like electrician level 4, QRD.
Sure.
No one knows what that means, right? But getting that changed is going to take 34 years inside. So how do we take that? How do we take content from a good company that is unoptimized and automatically optimize it in a way that will attract more job seekers? So we built, in Star Trek, they called it the universal translator. Yep. In and out. We could take in a crappy job ad, and our technology could reform it into a good job ad.
So, but
our research.
I love that. I love the concept of it, but I go back to job descriptions are one of the stumbling blocks on a good candidate experience. They're one of the stumbling blocks from a candidate traffic standpoint, but it's one of those things where you look at it and you go, this should be easy to fix, but it's always monumental, and companies just don't typically take it on at scale. They might start with a function or a division or a small group or whatever, but we don't typically see it scale. Are you saying that the tech is now easy enough, and the demand from a matching standpoint and the machines is high enough that orgs are going to start taking this seriously?
Yeah, they will. So first off, let me be clear. What we decided to do commercially was when we started to push on it, there were a few things that we found were massively valuable. And I do want to talk about those. Interestingly, they have more to do with content compliance rather than optimization.
Okay.
Some of them also happen to be making the robots happy rather than the people happy. And so we ended up taking this tech and building it right into our platform. So we're not charging people more for it because when we did the math, to your point, Chris, I think that the market isn't necessarily there yet, in terms of understanding the value. But in our business, if we drive better performance, people are happier with us. So this becomes a net for us.
Sure.
So what are the things that we found? First off is that there's a growing compliance challenge with organic traffic. So at job sites that provide both, free traffic, so they scrape your jobs off your job site and put it on their platform, and then they allow you to sponsor those jobs and pay more if you want more. There are two different sets of rules. One set of rules is if we're going to give you free traffic, the content needs to be perfect for job seekers. We're not going to let you pimp the ride and try and make it better by sign-on bonuses or all sorts of, oopsie, I can't see there, kind of gobbledygook marketing stuff. And even if it's like an old HRIS posting, like if it doesn't make sense, they degrade its value. So
Sure.
one of the things we did is we built this automated technology that just makes your organic feed to providers that provide organic traffic compliant. As soon as we did that for one company, literally they got 140 hires in 1 week because they weren't getting organic traffic because their content wasn't compliant. By simply making it compliant, rainbows and unicorns. So that was something that we didn't actually understand. And it's also a really pervasive problem. And so like if the biggest one of these platforms is Indeed. If you use Indeed, you can log into your account and you can go to the organic, or I forget the exact language that they use, part of the portal, and you're going to see a list of all your jobs that aren't compliant. So we built a piece of tech that allows them to be compliant. Indeed's happy. They get way more content that's better. The customers are like delirious because all of a sudden they're getting more traffic than they had before, and everybody wins. The other thing that we found, and so that isn't like writing and optimizing content for benefits or shorter titles or, putting the bullet points in the right spot to drive better outcomes. That's just making sure you're following the rules.
Well, so Chris, what would be like? Give an example of an area of compliance that most commonly is missed, to kind of just make it a little more relative to folks.
Yeah. So oftentimes you'll have company names in the job title. You'll have salary and compensation in the job title. Stripping those out, having either one of those is a non-compliant thing for organic traffic. Having a different title than what the robots that ingest it see in the description as the title is non-compliant. Having certain language in the job description makes it non-compliant.
So
there's a bunch.
Yeah,
Just a bunch of you guys remember, like, in high school, we all signed those athletic waivers of the things that you wouldn't do or would do if you were on a varsity team. And at least at Masconomet Regional High School, it went on for like 14 pages. You will not, you will always return your library books on time. And so it's that type of stuff.
Different platforms have different rules for compliance, correct?
Yeah. Generally, though, the Indeed, if you're compliant on Indeed, you're going to be compliant elsewhere. Their search quality unit is the best in the business, and they tend to be very, very good. And so there's that. The other thing that is, so like in terms of content for robots, if you go on job sites, there's the way you send data to job sites can be through a variety of mechanisms, but one of them is through what's called an XML feed. So it's basically a file that you send to the job site of your job content. If you have the pay rate for your job in the, let's say, the job description, and that, complies with, kind of pay transparency laws in a certain place, or you just want to tell people what the job pays, that's cool. That's great. If you don't have that data pulled out and put into what's called a node in the XML file, where the job board can actually read it and put it into its own database. So like when you are seeing the search results, it says electrician, and then there's the pay area. If that pay is in the job description, it doesn't automatically go into the pay area where they've parsed it out and where it can say it's $40 an hour. So we have software that just literally reads every job description and says, okay, this, what's the pay rate? Is it part-time? Is it full-time? Is it seasonal? Boom, boom, boom. And we pull that information into the appropriate node. Simply by doing that, you see a massive increase on your, both paid and organic outcomes. Because
I'm reminded of, when Google Jobs hit the scene and started really pushing this idea of the correct schemas in order to get your jobs. I think that's really when TA started to focus on the right fields and those components, right, from a tech standpoint.
And even now, they're to use a technical term, it's a shambolic mess. So there's a lot of stuff that gets done there. The other thing is that because of, Jerry talked about our ability to do closed loop. There's more and more companies that are, job marketplaces that are, have tags, like kind of like when you're on Airbnb, it says super host or, rare find. Well, you can do the same thing with job ads. Like, this is an employer that is responsive. If you have a responsive employer tag, that is super valuable. People engage with that. So if you have your application hosted on the platform, okay, so let's say a job site, they can actually make that because they know whether or not you're using their tools to communicate with job seekers. We know is it a short apply? Are they responsive because of our technology? And so we're able to pull that information in and put it in a node. Now, not all job sites use that just yet, but more of them are picking it up. And so if you think about content as what people see and what computers see to make the best possible match, it is, as the title of this says, content is king. It can make a huge difference. But this quote that is the title that Tom came up with, actually, it was Sweat Yin Chow's, runs a large part of our product group now, is from one of the early guys at BuzzFeed. And the full quote is, content is king, distribution is queen, and she wears the pants. And what it actually means is precisely what Jerry was talking about. Content can get people engaging, but the way you find out if it works is you throw it out into the wild, and then you need to measure what comes back on in. And then what performs is signal in the noise. And if you can get the signal, then all of a sudden you can start to make things better.
Well,
And
I love that you're shining a light on the findings. I think that's important because a couple of the things that you said, Chris, admittedly, the findings sort of fly in the face of all of these, branding and marketing gurus and people who inherently think that they are positioning that job to get eyeballs. I'll bet the vast majority, at least at this point in time, the vast majority of people posting aren't thinking about for the machines, right? Aren't thinking about that element of it. And I just think that's kind of wild and a huge shift that's just going to have to come.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. There is art to recruitment marketing, but the art is that it goes to 11 switch once you've done everything else right. So like the most people foundationally, in terms of getting their jobs to the right place, making sure that they're formatted right, making sure the titles and content are appropriate, make sure that the nodes are filled out appropriately. Very, very, very few companies do it all correct. So before you go and you start to think about how, there's a great quote from Maya Angelou: people don't remember what you wrote, people don't remember what you did. They remember how you make them feel. So before you go and you start to think about, oh my God, how are we going to make this feeling come through, which is the art of recruitment marketing and employer branding, make sure the computer's plugged into the wall.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. We got a couple of comments. Stephen Rothberg's dialed in. He says, when Marty McFly went back to 1955, he found that XMLs were being used then too. That's exciting news.
Yeah. So
I think, yeah. And I think we've also got another one here. Here we go. Christopher Sundin, employee responsiveness tag. Best thing always look for when applying to roles. Got a little testimony coming up there.
yeah, no, it's a huge deal. And, treating job seekers like customers has always been something that people talk about. I think that, Jerry and Elaine founded, kind of an award and an organization that was looking to highlight companies that treated job seekers well.
Yeah.
And, foundational to the Candies was this idea that you do good by doing right. It's a virtuous wheel. But when you come to direct response advertising in the jobs marketplace, now more than ever, like literally, if you can earn that tag, it can save you massive amounts of money in your direct response budget that you can reallocate to solve other problems.
Especially as that evolves, Chris, as companies evolve an ability to interview or to at least acknowledge and engage all the people that have expressed interest, as opposed to just a fraction of them. But they'll be able to do it from an automation point of view. And that consistency in how they do that may in fact change the attitudes of all of the people who've expressed interest in a way that enhances the employer brand of that company. And so companies that will have a tag that says, if you have an interest, a serious, sincere interest in our company, we want to listen to you. You will get up to bat. Will be a game changer, as long as we have a mechanism for measuring that in a way that the candidate is saying, oh yeah, I get it. I would rather go that path than that one, where it's just a chance.
Closing the loop and allowing data to inform your decisions and your approaches it sounds super dumb and super simple. Like
it is, but our almost all of the efforts, in my opinion, in the last 10, 15 years have been to try to increase the ability of the employer to make a decision. And what you're suggesting is that, and I agree with, is that we should be thinking a little bit about the kind of data that the candidate needs in order to inform them about the decisions they need to make.
100%.
I love it. Well, look, so I want to give you a chance really quick, Chris. You guys at Appcast, you have a resource library. And I think we'll throw it up here on the screen. Do you want to talk just a little bit about that? And quickly, for those who are just listening, it's appcast.io/resource-library. That's where you can learn a little bit more about it. But Chris, you want to tell us a little bit about that before we cut out?
So we've got a great content team that publishes free resources for the community. You don't got to pay for them. We put out an annualized benchmark report that has a lot of the data that I was just quoting, plus a ton more. There's also, Recruitonomics, Andrew Flowers' economic research team that looks at macroeconomic trends and how it impacts recruiting and ties it back to some of the stuff that we've got there. So check out it. It's like your local library. It's something that we do and we build for the betterment of the profession.
There we go. I dropped it in the chat as well. We'll make sure it shows up on LinkedIn too. And I will second, like, the Recruitonomics has got to be probably one of my favorite resources. Andrew comes in and does it quarterly with our TA community, and they love it. He puts it into English. He takes it out of sort of all the scary jobs report data that some recruiters just don't really wrap their head around, how that's relevant right away for them and how it touches their business. He does a really nice job at tying all that together.
Somebody we had a customer advisory board meeting a couple weeks ago, and somebody said he's the Taylor Swift of labor economics, and I can't get that out of my head.
You can't with that.
No, you can't unsee that. But I got the general idea. And not wrong. He's unbelievable. So if you haven't heard Andrew, you gotta get onto one of his.
I think Chris made 2 bets before this show. 1, I'm going to get a lot of pet insurance posts increased, and 2, memes of Andrew in a Taylor Swift wig are going to sweep the internet. Chris, we love having you on, but I got to ask you this question. We ask all our guests as we wrap up. If you're going to publish a book today on the state of things, right? We've talked about this, what's going on, and consider the machines and all the work that you guys are doing that's coming out of the labs. What would you title that book?
Distribution is queen, and she wears the pants.
I love it. Present company excluded. We got to ask, who gets the first signed copy?
Oh, goodness. Well, I think it probably has to be Owen Brian Gillum, my new grandson. How's that?
Oh, that's love. That feels so good. What a great way to have a Tuesday wrap up. I love that.
All right.
Good stuff. Well, Chris, thank you so much. I don't think we have anything else. We just remind folks you got the links in there. If you've got questions, you can find Chris on LinkedIn. He's a little elusive. It's Christian Foreman on LinkedIn. Yep. If you can find that hack, you can reach out obviously to Jerry and I at any time. You can check out the CXR website and the podcast, cxr.works. We're around if you have any questions or if you need anything. And I think that's pretty much it.
All right.
Let's say goodbye, everybody.
Yep. Ciao.
Thanks for listening to the CXR channel. Please subscribe to CXR on your favorite podcast resource and leave us a review while you're at it. Learn more about CXR at our website, cxr.works, facebook.com and twitter.com/careercrossroads, and on Instagram @careerxroads. We'll catch you next time.